Hello, and welcome to the Edifice of Trust podcast. The Edifice of Trust podcast is a thoughtful discussion of today's current events from the perspective of America's founding principles. Well, this is my third presentation on how the accumulation of surplus or wealth is a building block of civilization. As noted previously, Joseph Stiglitz, a left-wing economist and Nobel Prize winner, as well as other progressives, delight in pointing out the shortcomings of the American economic and political system. And, in all honesty, they actually have quite a lot of things to point out. The American system is not perfect. No system designed and implemented by humans can be. And there is nothing wrong, and actually arguably laudable, about pointing out a system's defects and suggesting remedies and reforms to improve the system's operations. Unfortunately, because the progressive left, mired in wrong-headed Marxian economic thinking, does not understand what drives the free market economy, their recommendations for reform do not address the real problems that affect our political economic system. Their list of complaints is long, very long. Inequality is one of their principal bugaboos. In his book, The Price of Inequality, Stiglitz states, "Our growing inequality, especially the amount seized by the upper 1%, is a distinctly American achievement." The use of the word seize is notable. Seize means to take possession of by force, although there are other meanings as well. Stiglitz expounds the Marxist concept that surplus is seized through exploitation and other non-legitimate methods. I wonder if Mr. Stiglitz believes that Steve Jobs seized his fortune, or Bill Gates, or Jeff Bezos, or the many other inventors and entrepreneurs that make the gadgets and supply the services that make our modern-day life. It is indeed true that some surplus can be generated by nefarious means, but this unjustifiable and often illegal surplus does not represent all surplus, and I believe that it represents a relatively small percentage of the total surplus generated by the free market economic system. The social contract defines the rules by which surplus can be legitimately created, and the citizens constitute a government to enforce those rules. Illegal surplus is the surplus generated by violating those rules. There are three main ways that people and organizations create non-legitimate surplus: monopoly, fraud or theft, and capture. Monopoly is where a person or company controls all or an overwhelming majority of a product or service. A monopoly gives its owner the ability to control the price of the product or service and to reap excess profit, or what we call surplus, because of the lack of competition. Monopoly is illegal in the United States, and the government has the power to block or break up attempts at monopoly. There are, of course, some exceptions, such as copyright laws to protect intellectual property rights and patent protection for newly invented products. Those protections are temporary and expire, and then the product becomes part of the public domain. Fraud is where a person or organization attempts to gain excess profits by adulterating the product or service in order to reduce the cost compared to the competition's cost. The adulterated products not only are a fraud that deceives consumers, but also a danger to the public, such as the case of lead in toys for small children. The theft of intellectual capital allows the thief to avoid the research and development costs needed to create great products. This is significant because knowledge represents the most important part of our accumulated surplus. Fraudulent actions and thievery to create illegal surplus are subject to criminal as well as civil penalties. Capture is different than the other abuses to create unjustifiable surplus. Rather than trying to illegally increase prices under monopoly or reduce costs through fraud or theft, captures where a person or organization, sometimes an entire industry, try to change the laws such that their efforts to maximize profits do not violate the law, even though they violate the spirit of the social contract. While the government actively seeks to prevent fraud and monopoly, government often colludes with attempts of capture, because it is the government that is being captured and the people in the government who benefit. This is the most insidious method of trying to obtain unjustifiable surplus, because it becomes ingrained into the system and it is very difficult to root out. At the extreme, citizens will claim, quote, "the system is rigged against us," unquote, because it is. Many people accuse Wall Street and big corporations of trying to capture government for their own benefit. A 77,000-page tax code is proof of that. But other interests also can attempt to capture government. Unions often use monopolistic practices to try and control the price of labor. America spends more per pupil than any other country on the planet, but high-priced teachers do not result in better academic results. Unions also try to capture government in order to rewrite labor laws in their favor. It is a natural impulse to try and orient the environment in which you live in your own favor. We have been doing that ever since our prehistoric ancestors wandered the savannas of Africa. But as long as you play by the rules and don't try to tilt the field in your advantage by rewriting the rules, that's okay. That's the beauty of the economic freedom available in the American free market system. You don't care about a person's motives as long as they play by the rules. People being what they are, the social contract envisioned by Enlightenment philosophers will always be subject to constant attempts of capture, and of people trying to tilt the playing field in their favor. But if, quote, people being what they are, unquote, is what makes life in the free market social contract occasionally hard for some, people, quote, being what they are, unquote, is what makes socialism so abhorrent. The free market social contract has a tendency toward chaos and needs constant reform to stay on track. Socialism tends toward static order and resists, usually with force, any attempt at change. The discontent that is running amok in the United States is evidence that the Enlightenment social contract envisioned by the founders is not functioning very well. This need is echoed by the progressive left as they shout for more equality, but it also reverberates from Trump supporters in their calls to, quote, drain the swamp, unquote. We need reform that addresses the causes of our current problems and not resort to the favorite political choices of paper over the problem, mandate the desired outcome, and then kick the can down the road. Thank you. Don't forget, my latest book, 2017, A Trumpian Year in Review, is now available. You can get it at Amazon, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, and also at iBooks. The book is available in paperback form and also in iBook form or Kindle, along with my other books, Principled Policy, A Conversation About America, and Edifice of Trust, Toward a Principled Social Policy, and also my novel, Tawantinsuyu, a novel about nuclear terror. Please check those out at Amazon or your favorite outlet. And also don't forget to check my weekly blog at www.edificeoftrust.com. Thank you. Okay, so this is my third podcast on the importance of surplus as a building block of civilization. So obviously I think it's a very important topic. What I also need to do is convince you that it's an important topic. Not every philosophy recognizes the importance of surplus. Marxism believes that surplus is derived from exploitation of workers and wants to squeeze exploitation out and surplus as well. But Christianity also denigrates the accumulation of surplus. We all know the story of how it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. But Christianity is focused on the next world, not this world. Generally, people want to accumulate surplus or wealth for themselves, and they don't care about its role as a building block of civilization. They become so focused that they will lie, cheat, and steal to get it. Generally, these kinds of things are illegal and punishable. But there are other ways to obtain surplus and to obtain the surplus of others. Government has the power to expropriate surplus through taxes and other means. So people try to get the government to get the surplus for them. To do this, they need to capture government in order to use its power. They don't necessarily need all of the government, just a part of it. But to do this, they need to distort the operation of the social contract. They want to tilt the playing field in their favor. They want to take away equal opportunity by hogging it for themselves. It is an attack on the social contract, and we citizens must resist them and restore the social contract to its original meaning. But attacking the creation of surplus is the wrong way to solve this problem. That's why you need to understand the importance of surplus. Thank you. In the next podcast, we will look at the methods that people and organizations use to capture government so that they can extract surplus from you, the taxpayers, for their own benefit.